Hello and welcome to the Microsoft 365 Virtual Marathon. My name is Lincoln DeMaris. I'm a program manager at Microsoft, and I'm here to talk to you today about Microsoft Lists. Microsoft Lists is a brand new app in M365 that helps you track information and organize work for your team. Lists are simple, smart, and flexible, so you can stay on top of what matters most for your team. With Lists, anybody can go and get started quickly and create a basic information tracking app to track things like issues, assets, routines, contacts, inventory, and more. Every list starts simple. At its heart, a list is like a database. It looks like you can interact with it like a spreadsheet and enter rows and columns of data. But on top of that, you can layer sophisticated custom formatting, custom views, and rules that keeps your team on track and moving forward. Lists work the way your team does. So if you're a group of people who likes to use Microsoft Teams, lists work great inside the Teams application. If you like to have conversations with people as you're working, you can have conversations inside the Lists app or on items inside of Teams. And we're excited to announce that we're working on a great mobile experience for Lists as well. So if you want to work on the desktop, if you want to work on the go, Lists have you covered. Despite Microsoft Lists being a brand new app in M365, it's important to realize that Lists is nothing new. Microsoft Lists are the evolution of SharePoint lists. And we've been working on SharePoint lists now for a couple of decades, and we're happy to say that millions of users a month today use SharePoint lists to gather, manage, track, and share data. Rest assured that everything I talk about in this presentation is going to make the lives of all those millions of users better. Microsoft Lists aren't a brand new thing. They're an accelerated set of capabilities on top of modern SharePoint lists. And so if you use modern SharePoint lists today, everything I talk about, you're going to be seeing later this year light up in your service. You don't have to go and change the way you work to take advantage of all the exciting new capabilities in Microsoft Lists. But that said, this summer, you're going to notice a new application in your M365 suite nav called Lists. You can enter that application to get started working with Microsoft Lists. And so when you're inside the Lists app, you can, it's an easy way to get to all of your lists. So if you've been to a list inside of a team site, the recent list section will give you an easy way to get back to those lists. This page is personalizable as well. So you can add a list to the favorite section at the top of the screen just by clicking a star next to one of the list tiles. This is also the easiest way to get started creating a new list. And so it's important to know that there are two types of lists now. There are the lists you know and love today, which are lists that live inside SharePoint team sites. And they're shared from the get-go with the same set of people that are inside that team site. We're also introducing the ability to create personal lists. So you can create a list that only you can access until you're ready to share it with your team. And so this page right here shows you a mix of your shared lists inside of team sites and the personal list that you've created and optionally shared with other people. Later this year, we'll be releasing a mobile app called Microsoft Lists that gives you the same set of capabilities on the go. So you can, using your phone, access access favorite lists, access recent lists, and get started creating new ones. Let's jump in and take a look at Lists Home and see how easy it is to get started working with lists. All right, welcome to my Lists Home. So we are looking at my recent lists and my favorite lists. Recent lists are a combination of personal and shared lists that I have recently accessed. So here you can see Issue Tracker inside of the Project Savannah site. I can click that and quickly access the information in this list. If I go back to my List Home, I'll show you the page is easily personalizable and customizable. So you see favorites up here are the lists that I want to access most quickly next time I come back. If I want to add a new favorite list, all I have to do is click the star. If I don't want this to be a favorite anymore, I just click that star again and make it go away. I can easily customize the name, color, and icon of any of my lists. So if I want to change the way this looks, I can access the column, click rename, and I can pick a color and an icon that suits my personality. I like to pick the pig icon for as many of my lists as possible. And just like that, I've customized the page. And I pinned the list that I need to use the most at the top. You see here that future project ideas is a personal list. You can tell that because it says my name instead of the name of the team site under it. When I click that, it looks just like the other lists, and I can work with it the same way. Let's see how easy it is to get started with a new list. All I have to do is click this Create New List button at the top. From here, I have a bunch of exciting options. I can create a blank list, totally blank canvas for me to do whatever I want. I can create a list from an Excel file. So if I have an Excel file that's in my OneDrive or on my computer, I can upload it and take one of the tables of data from that Excel file, and I can create a brand new list from it. I can also create a new list from an existing list. So if I have an enterprising team member who's created a really cool list, or if I've created a really cool list in the past and I want to reuse it and tailor it for a slightly different purpose, I can pick from a list of lists here, and I can create a copy of that list as my new list. So here I have all the different team sites where there's lists. I can browse through, I can find the one that I want and create a copy. But today we're going to create a list from a template. You see here that we provide a set of purpose-built templates out of the box to work a certain way. But think of templates as not an application that's frozen in place, but think of it as a starting point to help you realize your list-related dreams. When I click a list, I get a quick preview of what's inside. So you can see my issue tracker list is built to track things that are issues with columns like priority, status, a person that owns the issue, date reported, and all sorts of interesting information for tracking issues. The other templates are the same way. So if I click the asset manager list, you see this list is useful for tracking physical assets on a team, things that my team owns, and maybe get assigned out to other people, get rented out, get used for various purposes. But today we're gonna create an issue tracker list. So I'm gonna click issue tracker, click use template. And from here, I can customize it and make it mine. So let's call this the virtual summit issues list. I can pick a color. I'm going to give it the springtime lilac here, and I'm going to give it this target icon because we want to stay on target. You see here, I have a choice of where to save the list. The default option is my list. This creates a personal list for me that nobody else can access until I decide to share it with them. If I pull down this menu, I can pick any of my team sites to create a list inside that site, which if you've been a list user for a while, that's the sort of workflow that you're used to create a list in a team site. But for me right now, I like to work in a personal space and share it later when I'm ready. So I'm going to keep it in my list and just create it there. So when I click create, you see I get by default all the columns that I was seeing in the preview. And from here, it's time to get to work. This is the fun part. So I'm going to enter the quick edit view. This is the quickest way to quickly customize the schema and get some data inside of the list. So I'm just going to do a couple customizations here. I want to make this date reported column one of my first columns. So I'm going to drag it to the left, and I'm just going to paste some data in. I have some data already in my clipboard from Excel, and pasting is lightning fast. It's my favorite way of getting data inside of lists. One thing I can do that's new inside of lists, if you've been a quick edit user for a while, is I can choose between a couple of different layouts. So by default, it's configured to auto fit height. If I can go to fixed height to fit more rows on the screen at once and make every row the same height. So this is really nice if you have a long list and you don't want some long description taking up a bunch of space on your screen. For now, though, I'm going to go back to auto fit, and I'm going to start filling out my data here. So I can pick priority high. I can click down to fill down. And I'm just going to go and fill out some different fields here, customize my data. I can make things in progress. I can mark things as completed. It's great. My team has been busy. And I can mark certain things as blocked. I can type in a name. I'm just going to go ahead and assign these issues to myself because I'm industrious. And I'm going to assign one to my team member, Michaela. And again, I'm going to use this slick fill down capability to quickly fill out data. And you see here, this list is customized with a little bit of cool formatting that shows the picture of the person just to make things a little bit more compact and visually engaging. You can see here that the list is working in the background to apply formatting, business logic on top of the data that I'm entering. You see here that it's highlighting issues in red, issues that I've marked as blocked. It's applying this red highlight really to shine a spotlight on things that really need your team's attention. I think this is looking pretty good. Yeah, I think this list looks great. So I'm going to go ahead and exit Quick Edit. Another thing I want to show you today is the brand new image column. So today, if you've been a longtime user of SharePoint lists, you know that you can link to an image that's already uploaded somewhere else. We have a new image column that allows you to attach an image from your computer to a list item. So I can open the form, I can click Add an Image, and I can upload an image to my computer directly to my list without really having to think about storing that in somewhere else and then linking to it later. And see this, the image of the issue is right there for anybody who comes to the list. Another thing that's really cool and new in lists is the ability to default a view to Quick Edit. So if I switch to Quick Edit, we have this lovely grid view that's really optimized for entering and editing data. If I want this to be the default view that people get when they come back to a list later, I can go save view as, and next time someone comes to this list, they'll default right to this grid view. And they'll be able to quickly modify and add rows of data. Let's quickly recap what I just showed you. I showed you how easy it is to start with list home and create a brand new list. I showed you the different options that you have when creating a list. You can create a blank list, you can create a list from existing, or you can create a list from a table in one of your Excel files. I also showed you how easy it is to create a list from a template. And we're going to start with a small set of templates that you saw in that demo, and we're going to gradually add more and more templates over time as we learn feedback and we hear from you what sort of templates you'd like to see. You also saw how every list can get a color and an icon, and how easy it is to set when you create a list, and how easy it is to change later if you want to go with a different color or icon, or you want to personalize it depending on how you're feeling that day. After I created my new list, you saw me enter data inside of our new grid view. Grid is the evolution of the SharePoint Quick Edit view, and we're committed to making this the fastest, most fluid, most delightful way to get data inside of a list. You're going to see improvements to Quick Edit come down the line this summer. You're going to see new and improved field editors for every field type. You're going to see sticky headers. You're going to see a sticky first column. You're going to see fixed and dynamic layouts, and you're going to see more and more over time. If you are at home working inside of a spreadsheet in Excel, you're going to be at home working inside of Grid in lists. Another thing that's coming down the line this summer is the ability to create image column types, so you can upload images directly from your computer to your list without having to worry about uploading them to another library and linking them in later. You're going to see a continued focus on performance. Lists are lightning fast. I haven't been able to say that in the past, but I can say that now. It's instant to flip a list into the grid mode and edit data that way. We're also really committed to building an industry-leading list editing experience on mobile as well. You can see a preview on this slide. This is going to be coming down the line later this year, and as fast and fluid as you saw me editing a list on a desktop, it's going to be just as fast and fluid on your mobile device as well. Okay, now that I have all of my data inside of my list, I'm going to play around with some formatting features, and I'm going to really make this list mine. Before I forget, I'm going to click that star, add it to my favorites, so it's really easy to get back to that list later. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about these cool pill formatting that you see. You see that priority and status rendering inside of these cool looking rounded rectangles. I just want to show you there's no magic here. This is something that you can do in any list, not just those created from a template. But if you really dig this formatting, you can apply this to any list that you have today. And in order to do that, I pull open the column menu and I go to format this column. And you can see here that format choices pills is one of the options that I have in my conditional formatter. So I can click edit. I can customize the fine details of these pills. If I want high to look a little bit more, let's say alarming, I can go ahead and give it a fill color and I can go from there. If you don't like pills, if you're not a big rounded rectangle person, you would rather just have classic sort of rectangular conditional formatting, you can apply that as well. So, we don't push these rounded rectangles on you. A lot of people like them. I think they look beautiful. I prefer to have my lists look in this sort of modern way, so I'm going to keep the pills. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to focus on this conditional formatting. You see here that the list included in the template is the logic to highlight rows in my list if the status is blocked. And that's great, but I want to tweak this and make it work a little bit more, a little bit smarter here. So I'm going to go under my view menu, and I'm going to go to format view, and I'm going to configure conditional formatting. And if I click manage rules here, you'll see, well, sure enough, the list is pre-configured. If status is equal to blocked, then render the row inside this red highlight. But I'm gonna delete this rule, and I'm gonna create something a little more sophisticated here. So I'm gonna say, if the priority of the issue is equal to high, or if the priority is equal to critical, I really want to shine a light on things that are most important. So critical and high, I happen to have a lot of issues in my list that are critical and high. So you see here that there's a lot of rows that are now highlighted in blue here. So I can go and make that a little bit more of a soothing yellow color. And it's sort of like a highlighter from grade school, right? I've drawn a highlight around the rows in my list that have a critical or high priority. But I mean, this is a little bit too much. So I'm going to add one more condition. I'm going to say, okay, if the priority is high or if the priority is critical, and if the days old field is greater than 5. Okay, now great. I have 2 issues that are high priority and older than 5 days. And so this is great. Now this is really shining a spotlight on precisely the things that matter the most in my team right now. And so I'm going to click save. And I'm gonna feel pretty satisfied with this. But it's important to know that lists are more than just rows and columns of data. For an issue tracking list, I think this format works great, but there's a lot of different kinds of lists. One type of list is an asset tracking list. So I've switched to another list here, and this is the list my team is using to track physical devices. You see that some devices are available, some are in repair, some are in use, and this is great. But we have a different visualization that's really well suited for lists like this, where the visual element is really the focal point. We have a new gallery view. You can see here that this is really shining a spotlight on the picture of the device and makes it a little bit easier for me to visually scan my list and find a particular device. These are sort of views that carry with it all the powerful sorting, grouping, and filtering capability of SharePoint, so I can switch to another view that's grouped by asset type, and I can get these same sort of configurable cards in the view. You don't have to be a wizard to configure these cards. You can go to Format this view, and you can just click Edit Tile. And this allows me to quickly drag and drop to configure the information that's displayed in each card. So if I don't want to show the photo, I can uncheck that. If I want to show the purchase date and the purchase price, I can drag those up and put this data front and center in my list. And this is great. If I want to simplify this down and just show a few fields, all I have to do is click the check marks and click Save. And just from there, I've created a customized gallery view for the assets on my team. In a lot of scenarios, time is of the utmost importance. So I have another list here. This is an event itinerary list. So this is tracking events for an upcoming event that my team has to prepare and plan for. So the best way to visualize data where time is of the utmost importance is inside a calendar. So I'm proud to announce that you can now create a calendar view on top of any list in SharePoint. So here I've switched to the calendar view on my team, and this is the same list data, just rendered inside a calendar. And so I can flip through months to see things coming in June or May. I can click the new button to add a new item to that day, or I can click an item in the calendar to open the form. This is another part of my list experience that's customizable. So the form is the thing that lays out all the data in the list. This is sort of the master copy of a particular list item. And so it's super easy to take this form and customize it and make it yours. First thing that you can do is you can just simply edit the columns that are shown in the form. So I don't want to show the duration field in the form anymore because that's automatically calculated. And I want to drag this notes field up closer to capacity. I can hit save, and you can see those changes are reflected in my form right away. But what if I want to do something a little more sophisticated? What if I don't always want to show this notes field? We now have the ability to do conditional show hide on fields. So I can go back to that edit columns UI. I can highlight notes, and I can edit this conditional formula, or I can specify a formula that determines whether or not this field is shown based on the value of other fields in this list. And so I'm actually going to show you how easy it is for anybody to pick this up and make it work for them. So I'm actually going to click on this help link here, and I'm going to show you the help page that you get when you discover this feature for the first time. And you can see that in order to specify conditional logic for fields, all you have to do is specify an Excel-like if statement. And so this is the one taken from the Microsoft help page here. And you can see all I have to do is tweak this and make it work for me. So instead of category, I want to base this condition off of the capacity field. And instead of checking for product management, I want to check for values above 50. So what I'm doing here is I only want to show the notes field if my capacity is above 50. Notes are only relevant if it's a particularly large session with a large capacity. So I can save here, and I can see, oh, the notes field went away. But if I change capacity to 70, notes comes back. Order snacks. That's important to keep in mind for this conference. All right, wonderful. So I've customized this form. It's working for me and my team. Those of you with a keen eye may have noticed, hey, there's this cool header at the top of the screen. This isn't part of the out-of-the-box SharePoint form, is it? I'm proud to show you how easy it is to configure basic headers, footers, and layouts of the form. So if I click Configure Layout, you see here that you can now apply formatting to the header, the body, and the footer of a form. And so admittedly, this is a little bit of a power user feature. If you're familiar with SharePoint column and view formatting JSON syntax, you'll be familiar with the ability to specify header and footers here. So I can change to footer. I'm just going to go over here and grab a block of JSON, paste that in. And right there, I've sort of added a standard footer to my form that gives people a link to learn more. And so Power Apps is still a great way to build totally custom line of business apps as forms on top of a list, but this is the best way to do something really quick and dirty and simple. If you want to keep people inside the SharePoint form and just show a link or a header at the top, this is the feature for you. All right, let's recap what I just showed you. So I showed you how easy it is to build custom visualizations on top of list data. I showed you the ability to create a calendar view on top of lists that have date and time data. And I showed you how easy it is to customize a gallery view on top of lists that have visual elements that you want to highlight prominently inside of a card. These are features that we're going to continue to invest in as the year goes on. We're going to be adding more and more calendar features, like the ability to do day and week layouts, the ability to do color coding, and more depending on the feedback that you give us. We're also going to continue to evolve the gallery view. We are thinking really hard about what it would take to build Kanban capabilities on top of that. So you can imagine starting with a gallery view, the ability to group by a particular piece of metadata and realize a serial workflow from start to finish by clicking and dragging cards around. We're also going to continue to invest in the fundamental column and view formatting capabilities to allow you to apply custom pill formatting, custom conditional logic, and highlighting to shine a spotlight on whatever business process that you're running inside of your list. I also showed you the power of SharePoint forms. So forms have always been an important element of SharePoint lists, and they're getting more and more powerful and more customizable every day. So earlier this year, actually late last year, we released the ability to do simple show, hide, reorder of columns in the SharePoint form. We're currently rolling out the ability to do conditional show hide. So if you want to build simple branching logic in your forms, it's as easy as specifying a simple Excel-like if statement to control whether a field should be shown based on the value of another field in the form. For power users, we're also rolling out the ability to do JSON-based header and footer and body customization of forms. So if you're familiar with column and view formatting via JSON, you're going to be familiar with that set of capabilities as well. But it's not just for people who are sort of industrious enough to write custom JSON. We're also going to invest in user experiences for doing simple form customization, like a rich text editor, drag and drop. So you don't actually have to go and modify JSON, but anybody can open a form and go and accomplish simple customizations on top of it to make it their own. All right, let's take a look at some more powerful capabilities in the product for doing collaboration and running processes on top of lists. Okay, let's talk about working together on lists. So the best lists are like the best documents. They're the product of many different people working together. So the most important thing, most fundamental collaboration verb that exists is the ability to share. So you see here, there's an end of FY key results list, and you can see that my name is under it. It's a personal list. If I want to bring in collaborators, all I have to do is go to the card, hit share, and type in the name of the person I want to share it with, hit grant access, and great. Michaela will get a notification, and she can come into that list and collaborate with me. You can also share individual list items. So if I go into this event itinerary list, you can go ahead and highlight an item and click share. And this brings up the same familiar sharing dialog from files in OneDrive and SharePoint. So if you use those products, you're going to be familiar with this ability to share. So the default option here is you can grab a link that'll work for people inside of your company. You can change that to be a link that works for anybody, or a link that works just for specific people that you specify. So you have the same set of controls that you have for files. You have that on list items as well. So once you share your list with the right people, one of the exciting capabilities that we're working on is the ability to have a comment feed on list items. So you see here, I've switched to a prototype, and this prototype shows that list items have this little chat bubble next to them. And if I hover over that, I can see that this list item has a comment stream associated with it. I can click that, and what it does is it brings up the form, and you can see the comments on that list item as well. So comments are now sort of a fundamental part of the data that makes up a list item. Every list item has a comment stream, just like every file in Office or every file in OneDrive has a comment stream as well. So I can click here, I can type my comment, and I can hit go. And so this is a super lightweight way of having a conversation and making some collaboration happen within the scope of a single list item. And this is great. Later in the year, we're going to be adding the ability to @mention people inside of this comment stream as well, which is really the quickest way of identifying someone who needs to get some work done on a list item and send them a note pulling them in to collaborate. Another exciting capability we're bringing to the lists is the ability to configure rules. So I can pull open this automate menu and I can click create a rule. And what this lets you do is it allows you to specify conditions and actions in response to those conditions. So you can create a rule to take an action when data changes inside of a list. This is the best way to keep you and your team updated when things happen in the list. And so one thing I can do is I can create a rule that sends a notification when a new item is created. All I have to do is click this tile, and you can see creating a rule is really as easy as writing a sentence. So this says when a new item is created, send an email to speakers. And I can specify, well, I actually want to get the email. I want to stay in control. I want to be notified whenever an item is created in this list. And so just as easy as that, I type in my name. And so now this list is configured to send a new email to me anytime a new item is created. There's a lot of different kind of rules that you can create. So one of the coolest rules is the ability to send a notification when a particular column changes to a particular value. So you see here the second rule, when session type is keynote, send an email to Mark Cashman. So Mark Cashman is in charge of keynote sessions for this conference. And so this rule will let him know when a new keynote is created to sort of give him a cue that he should come into this list and start collaborating. Let's recap what we just saw. We saw how easy it is to share a list or an individual list item with the people that you want to collaborate with. So even if you start with a personal list that only you can see, you can later bring in the right set of people to get work done inside of that list. We also showed the exciting new commenting capability that's coming to lists. So if you pull open a list item, right next to the form, you can have a conversation with your team members about the contents of that list item. Every list item is its own entity, and every entity has its own comment stream associated with it. We're going to keep investing in these capabilities as well. We're going to bring more and more business controls to the sharing capabilities, and we're going to bring more and more collaboration capabilities to that comment stream. Most notably is the ability to @mention someone to bring them into the list. I think that's going to be a super transformative feature that allows people to quickly work together and get stuff done inside of a list. So I'm super excited to bring that feature to you guys. We also saw the sort of birth of the new rules feature in SharePoint. So rules is the easiest way to configure simple business behaviors inside of a list and send notifications to people when the time is right. So last year, we shipped the ability to set a reminder in a list that's powered by a flow. So that's great. You can still use that feature. It's still great. This summer, you're going to see rules appear in the user interface. You're going to be able to create a rule for 5 conditions. You're going to be able to create a rule that fires when an item is created, when an item is modified or deleted. You're going to be able to create a rule that fires when a column value changes or when a column value changes to a particular value. And the response of a rule is always a notification. So you can send an email notification to a particular recipient when one of those conditions are met. Rules can also be built into list templates. So out of some of our first party list templates are going to have rules pre-configured. So all you have to do is create a list. And right from the get-go, there's an engine in the background that's going and keeping your team productive and focused. We're also building on more capabilities inside of rules. So down the road, you'll be able to create a task as an output of a rule instead of just a simple notification. We're also, when we build the ability for you to define your own list templates, you can configure the rules inside of those as well to work exactly the way that you need. And it's important to keep in mind that there's sort of a spectrum of business solutions that you can build on top of lists, from very simple to very complex. So just by building a list, you're sort of realizing a business process by having a central point of truth for the information that your team is working on. Just by putting data in the grid and sharing it, you've started a very simple business process. On top of that, I showed you how easy it is to layer on conditional formatting and rules to do sort of lightweight orchestration and management of data. And then from there, there's a very robust set of capabilities offered by the Power Platform. So as you can today, you can still implement Power Automate and Power Apps on top of lists to build truly custom line of business solutions, starting from a very simple foundation inside of a list all the way up to a custom line of business solution with the Power Platform talking to lists. Lists also work fantastic inside teams. So teams is a really exciting way to collaborate with a set of people and get work done. It's where the action is happening here at Microsoft, and maybe it's where the action is happening inside of your organization as well. Lists work perfect inside of Teams. So all the functionality that I showed you today inside a browser window is going to work embedded inside of Teams as well. So any list can be embedded in any Teams channel. And if you have a Teams channel, you can create a brand new list from within Teams as well in the context of that channel. And so when you're working with a list inside of a team, you can also have a team conversation associated with any list item inside of any channel. I'm also excited to announce that the team is hard at work building best of breed list apps for mobile devices. So if you've been with SharePoint for a while, you know that SharePoint has always been primarily a desktop browser-based application, and sort of mobile has been sort of, we've built some companion app experiences on mobile, but most of the power has always been on the desktop. I'm really proud to announce that we're working on changing that with lists. So if you prefer to work with your lists on the go, we're going to have an app for you to do everything that you would do on the desktop, but on your phone or on your tablet. And so later this year, you'll be able to open your app store and install the Lists iOS app. And from there, you'll be able to do everything that I showed you today. You'll be able to access your list home, your favorite lists, your recent lists. You'll be able to create a new list from a template, and you'll be able to work with and edit all of the data inside of your lists. You'll be able to set up rules, receive notifications, do it all on the go. And so we're thinking this will really make lists a fundamental part of how you get work done on your teams and in your organization, not just at your desktop computer, but on the go as well. If you want to learn more about lists, go ahead and access this webpage shown here on this slide. We're really excited to share these capabilities with you. Can't wait for you to give them a try and give us feedback. Please let us know what you think. I want to thank you all for your time today. I've had a great time showing off what you can do with lists today and talking about what you'll be able to do with lists down the road. I can't wait for you to get your hands on these new capabilities and tell us what you think. We're always listening to your feedback, and we're excited to work with you to make lists the best way to track and organize information on your team. Thank you so much. Look forward to hearing from you. Bye now.